Hey there, how's it going? I'm Dr. Dave with Stronghold Health.
I'm Dr. John with Stronghold Health.
And today we're going to be spending a little bit of time breaking down the breakdown of the neck curve. So we're going to be discussing the progression of how someone goes from a normal healthy curve in their neck to essentially looking like the guy from Up. Or old, crippled, and in this case, you don't always have to be old to be quote unquote crippled or lost curve in the neck. So we're going to be discussing a general 30,000 foot view of how that entire process takes place. So I guess starting off, I could ask you, Doc, what are we looking for normal curve in the neck?
We want curves, right?
Yeah.
We're looking for 43 degrees. And you know, before we start and get into what we're actually seeing in a lot of people, how do we get these curves? And this is important for all of you parents out there. The stages that we go through during development are extremely important. So when your doctors are saying tummy time is very important, and why is that? You have to bring your head up, and gravity starts to actually encourage and enforce the curve in your neck.
So we could back up and we could say, what curve are we actually born with as a starting point?
I actually don't know that.
Cool. So let's swap on this real quick. So when babies come out of the womb, the curve that they have, you know this, I just asked the question the wrong way, is that mid-back curve. And so all that time curled up in the womb, finally you get born. When you come out as a baby, it flattens a little bit, but for the most part, that's the curve that you retain, that most of us are born with. And so the other two curves that we need in our spine, one of them is going to be in your neck, and then the other one's going to be in the low back. So Dr. John's referencing belly time, being able to make sure that baby gets plenty of belly time so that they start developing the muscles and the support in the neck to develop that neck curve.
Yep.
And that's when the neck curve begins to develop, and some of the low back curve begins to develop as well. But then when we start standing upright, learning how to walk, that's when that low back curve further develops, and then any additional curve angle that needs to take place for the neck also starts getting into the spine. And so typically when we're taking x-rays on a new patient, doing an evaluation on the neck, what we're looking for is that normal healthy curve. And
arc of life.
If that arc of life isn't there, it could be a question of, did it develop properly from when you were born? And you started crawling and then started walking. Did you ever develop the curve properly? Or we properly developed it, but then life happened.
Cell phones.
And so in life, some of the things that happen, tech neck, hunching forward, curling the shoulders forward, you start losing the curve, and you also start to develop forward head posture where your head is further forward in relationship to that center curve that you're born with, right? So anyway, what we should probably do is start with what a normal neck curve should look like. So when you're looking at it from the side view, that green arc that you're seeing is a 43 degree curvature.
And you know, why is this important? And the way that the spine is actually developed here is, I'll step up a little bit. We have little bones, little joints in the back of our bones, and they are called facet joints. I'll show you here on this part of the spine. But this little flat surface is created in a specific angle so that it puts pressure. We want all of the pressure there, because if we have it shifted forwards, you guys have heard of your discs, intervertebral discs. They are a giant sponge. It's basically water and cartilage, and it's not a stable structure. So when you start to put pressure on those discs, and we talk about this when we have new patients, and continue to talk about it with all of our ongoing patients, but essentially if you start to put pressure on the disc opposed to the bone, everybody's heard of herniated disc, slip disc, bulging disc. That's how they start to occur. I mean, it could happen with a severe trauma like an accident, but a lot of the time it's already put into an unstable situation, and then you bend forward to touch your toes or tie your shoes.
Yeah, trauma can easily affect that. So basically what you're saying, if I understand properly, is we have to have a curve in our neck because the curve in our neck is a very sound, very strong, very stable structure. In fact, on bone studies, you have to apply so much downward force from gravity. With a perfect curve in the neck, you would have to fracture and break your bones before the disc in between, that shock absorber, will ever herniate.
Right.
And in those same studies, what they found is if you lose 50% of that curve and then apply normal compressive force from gravity downward, already it shows that the shock absorbing disc there begins to buckle under the stress. Simply because when you lose the curve, you no longer are putting the weight through that strong facet joint in the back that Dr. John's talking about. You're now shifting it further forward so that it puts the compressive force right onto the disc.
Right.
And that disc isn't supposed to withstand that amount of pressure, right?
Yeah, and we were talking to an engineer that was in here as a new patient, and they mentioned that the bridge out in Natchez Trace
Bridge
is actually 43 degrees. It's one of the strongest structural curvatures known to man.
Which is interesting because in engineering, a lot of modern engineering principles are actually derived and extrapolated from principles that we found in studying biomechanics of the human frame.
Yep. And used
Fulcrums,
in Roman
pulleys,
times.
lever arms, arc angles. So very, very interesting. So anyway, you're supposed to have that curve in your neck. It's called a lordosis, or your arc of life. And so that's ideal. That's what we should have as a normal curvature. And then in time, on that picture, the second picture, what you'll notice is your body will start progressing where you lose the curve and it straightens. So straightening, interestingly enough, is called military neck.
Yep.
We call it tech neck is another common term for it because it's like everybody and their mother right now, even like 5-year-old kids that are coming in and having x-rays taken already have straightening in the neck, which is crazy. So there is, a byproduct of all the technology with the iPads and the iPhones and computer time. So with that one, what's the biggest thing that we typically see with straightening in the neck?
Typically, especially if it's just straight, if it's forward, every 15 millimeters that your head comes forward, you add 10 pounds of stress to the neck. It's like taking a bowling ball, right? We've used this analogy a ton because your head is basically a bowling ball. But essentially, every time you take it 15 millimeters forward, you add 10 pounds of pressure, and the fulcrum of the middle of your neck is at C5. And those nerves head out to the outsides of your arm, give your biceps the ability to be used.
So it controls the muscles in that region.
So we see muscle weakness, we see numbness, paresthesia, abnormal feeling, maybe tingling. And it goes down all the way into the hands, into the arms. Not to mention the fact that when your head goes forward, if you're straight, you'd be looking down at the ground. So what do?
You're going to look up?
You bring your head to look level. And that compresses the base of your neck and forces all those muscles to get really tight. So you get tension headaches, migraines.
Sinus allergy issues. Because all the nerves that are right here at the top part of the spine are going to go ultimately to control those regions of the body. So you have suboccipital nerves that come out at the top level right there that go all the way up around the back part of your head to your foreheads, typical headache nerves. You're going to have nerves that come out up here at the first level and they go to the sinuses in your eyes, ears, nose, and throat. You're also going to have nerves right at the top, vagal nerve function, that goes to controlling blood pressure, heart pulse rate, and then respiration, breathing while you sleep.
Yep.
So you even see some people that'll come in dealing with sleep apnea and breathing issues with sleep. And that's the cool thing to remember with all of this. Chiropractic is going to be focusing on the frame, but the frame not because we really care about the bones as much as what the bones protect. So the bones surround and protect our spinal cord and our nerves, and so really the biggest focus is taking care of the structure so that the structure does what it's supposed to and taking care of the nerves. So you already kind of went in, I guess, to the next one where we have straightening in the neck, but then forward head posture.
Yep.
So that would be the next progression is over time, our brain is always trying to keep our head centered above our spine. And so this is really far forward in relationship to the tailbone. And so when you have a straightening in the neck with forward head positioning like that, typically what you might notice is more of a kyphosis in the mid region of the spine so that your head is closer to your tailbone. And an increase in kyphosis like this with the forward head positioning and the straightening of the neck puts all of the force from gravity right here in the upper back. So I've noticed a lot of patients that are dealing with forward head posture and the straightening of the curve in their neck are dealing with major upper back pain, upper back problems, tension in the muscles, and a lot of them will carry the stress in my shoulders. So after that, the body will go through adapting because what never takes a day off?
Gravity.
Gravity never takes a day off. So living downtown, we always have sirens, but gravity never takes a day off, so it's always compressing down on the spine. So our body has to go through adaptation to adapt us to our internal and our external environment. So the next form of adaptation we end up going through is kyphosis. So now it's not just straight, but it'll actually start curving the wrong way. So we can't walk around like this all day long with the forward head positioning, so our body will start to stand more upright as a force of habit, and then as a result of that, we'll have a reverse curve in the neck. So typical progression, then if that's left for a long enough period of time, like the bowling ball analogy, I guess in this analogy, the bowling ball's our head.
Yeah.
The further I pull it away from my spine or away from my body, I feel it back in my shoulders. So the shoulders in this case are going to be that C5 fulcrum bone we were talking about in the middle part of the neck with the reverse curve. Now it's under a crazy amount of stress, so our body tries to fix it. So in time, the way that our body tries to fix it is to deposit extra bone sediment and increase the surface area, and it slowly starts to form, I guess it's called osteoarthritis or osteophyte bone spur. Yeah. So that's essentially what will end up happening.
And as you continue over time, and obviously this is years and years of leaving it unchecked, but those bones will actually fuse. So the amount of bones or the amount of calcium that gets deposited, because they want to, basically the body, right, is always going to do whatever it can to protect you, which sometimes it's the wrong thing, right? So we don't want to leave it to its own devices. We want to make sure that we're encouraging it to do what it should.
I might argue with you though and say your body always does the right thing at the right time.
Well, yeah, and,
right?
and you
So,
know, but
we're going to look at it and be like, you know, educated individuals, any average Joe looks at it and says, no, my body's doing the wrong thing, but our body's adapting, which is the right thing.
Yes.
To try and keep us to survive, but the adaptation that it's doing is creating a bone spur formation in the middle part of the neck,
Which
and
we don't want.
trying to fuse the bones together. So I think ultimately surgeons for an extreme intervention look at it and say, well, the body's already progressing and the body's trying to fuse those two bones together, so we might as well intervene, because that's the natural progression it's going to end up going.
Right.
So then after that, we end up having two very advanced forms of change take place in the neck. They're called S-curves. So from an annotation perspective, when we put lines on the x-rays, your neck essentially forms like an S, essentially. Yep. So that's why we call it S-curves, and there's two different types. When your body has the reverse curve and it keeps it on the lower half, or your body moves that reverse curve all the way up to the top, which is kind of gnarly, like that.
Yeah.
So that would be the most advanced.
And that's a kyphotic S-curve, and then the one lower is called a lordotic S-curve.
Correct. So if we give you recommendations for home exercises, it's really important, because if you have an advanced form, and keep in mind this isn't always advanced because of time, it could just be advanced because of the severity of the case. So you could be 22 and still be dealing with a kyphotic S-curve in the neck because of ligament instability or some other thing that happened. Sometimes it's trauma related, or sometimes it never developed properly.
Right. And if you're younger and you have these curves, you want to do something about them now.
Yes.
Or you will get all these horrible degenerative changes.
Creates way too many issues later on that you could easily avoid if you start addressing it now. Because we always say the best time to take care of a problem is
now.
now.
And 10 minutes a day will give you years on your life.
Right, so if we give you exercises to do at home, and the exercises include what are called CTP pools, very closely pay attention to those exercises and make sure you do them, because it's typically going to be addressing one of these very specialized types of curves that we have developing in the neck, so that we can get the curve back down into the mid-back where it belongs and help to restore that normal lordosis in the neck to the best possible degree.
Right. And we've said this quite a bit, but we are not wireless. If you got some stuff going on in the neck, it kinks the hose and doesn't allow all the power to go through, so the whole entire body can have some serious effects going on because of it.
Yeah. Speaking to that, I mean, just as a quick example, we'll have many patients that'll come in originally dealing with like a low back issue, and we discover a kyphotic curve or some other issue taking place in the neck. We could literally all day long, 5-6 days a week, do adjustments and work only on the low back, but it would never get better until the body addresses what's taking place in the neck first, because we're not wireless, we're wired. So the loss of curve, it's all about how it affects the spinal cord inside those bones, so it affects the wires that still come out down here. And so that's why we're addressing full spine at our clinic.
Yep.
So we were just at a Nashville Preds game, Dr. John and I.
Worst called game in history.
It was horrible. They gave away literally goals to the other team, but it was fun nonetheless. And the guy that was there serving drinks in the suite actually was an old patient from like 2 years, maybe 3 years ago.
4 years ago.
4 years ago, okay. So time flies, and it was cool for me because it was a little surreal. I was like, cool, we made an impact and a difference in this guy's life. He was very, very positive, really happy to see us. But one of the things that we took away from that, both Dr. John and I, is the importance of doing home exercises, home supportive care, passive molding, basically following through with your routine on a daily basis, just like we brush our teeth and floss our teeth every day.
Yep.
And what was the big thing that you noticed with him?
Well, he wasn't in as severe pain, and he hadn't been in a long time.
And even he himself said, I do these every single day. I still have the equipment. I use it literally every day. I do the exercises. And he wanted updated exercises, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So not everybody, we're not encouraging you to not get adjusted. I think one key component he is missing is the regular chiropractic adjustments for the maintenance. But I mean, outside of that, he is able to keep a majority of the pain at bay because he's actually taking care of his spine on a daily basis. So,
right. And to
if we
speak
give
to
you
that,
exercises-
when you don't do them, you start to feel those things creep in. I was talking with my dad the other day, military guy, and he was just like, if I just do what you told me to do, I'm not in pain. Imagine that. I'm like, yeah, Dad, do what I tell you to do. So, role reversal.
Stubborn. Yeah. So if we give you exercises to do, please do them.
And we know by your x-rays if you are or you are not.
That's right. And if you're watching this video warming up on the wobble cushion right now and you know you need to do exercises, it's okay. You can be honest. Just come into the adjustment bay, tell Dr. John or I, and we'll be nice to you. But we'll help you. We'll remind you of what you should do, and especially answer your questions, because I think sometimes part of the reason why we don't do something is because we feel like we don't fully know it, or there's still that unknown element. So getting more familiar with it sometimes makes it easier to do. And sometimes it's routine and timing. So
right. And we are not responsible for your health. This is a partnership, right? So we want you to make sure you are taking care of yourself.
That's right.
And helping us help you.
Awesome. Well, hopefully this has been helpful for y'all. We look forward to seeing you in whatever next video you end up watching, whether that be an exercise video or a blooper. Maybe it'll be a blooper video. Hopefully it's bloopers.
Well, we're signing off.
We're signing off. Bye.
Hi, welcome to Stronghold.
What do you say? La 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 la. That's how you know.
That's impressive.
1, 2, 3, 4 conduit pipes.
That's nice.
Great.
Red
Yellow,
leather,
red,
yellow
black,
leather.
red, yellow, yellow leather. Yeah, go ahead and clap it up.
Yeah.
clap.
Dr. Dave, Dr.
No,
John,
now.
Peace out.
Okay.
Peace out, Girl Scouts.
Both of us peace. Both of us peace.
Peace.